Hello, um, Bayless and Brother Bayless Conly and wife. Um, I think um, it would be a good idea for y'all to pray about continuing this message, or um, maybe making a brief comment or something about it. Yes, you're right. God does command us to forgive. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're right. I think you need to explain how we can know when we've forgiven somebody. And I also think you need to explain that at least in some cases, yes, you talked about the church discipline, Brother Bayless, and everything you taught about that was definitely in line with what Jesus said. But I think you need to explain that, or I wish you would have, but anyway, pray about doing it in another sermon or something, some kind of way. Explain that just because you forgive somebody does not mean necessarily that you're going to have the same relationship with them. Sometimes it can be, but not always. Just like David, he repented, but things were never the same for him for the rest of his life. Somebody may wrong you, maybe even somebody that was a Christian or is a Christian, they may wrong you, but it may not necessarily mean that things are the same between you. It doesn't necessarily mean that you've got to be buddies with them. You know, you could at least say hello, how you doing, but that may be as far as you need to take it. You may have been buddies with them at one time, but you may not need to be buddies with them, and they may be restored. And you do need to at least speak to them and say hello, how you doing? Maybe eat a meal with them, but it doesn't mean you got to be buddies with them. Even if it's your parents, just like if a person grows up and they've been abused all their life, it doesn't mean if they forgive their parents and maybe their parents have gotten saved, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're buddies with them. Now maybe if their parents have gotten saved, it may be different. But if they haven't and they've been like sexually abused by their parents, it doesn't mean that they've got to walk up to mom and daddy and hug them. That may be the last thing they need to do. Just shake their hand or say hello, how you doing, talk to them on the phone. Unless they know there has been genuine repentance. And even if there has been genuine repentance, maybe still a handshake might be as good as, just because if they walk up to them and hug them, it could release feelings that don't need to be there. It could tempt them to go back into that abusive mode where they want to, commit immoral acts with their offspring. So there are times when, even if there's forgiveness, it doesn't mean that things will necessarily be, you know, restored between you and that person in a relationship like it was before. Just like a TV evangelist. I'm not going to name his name, but I think you'll know who I'm talking about. He was the most respected, I believe, Pentecostal evangelist there was. And a lot of people may have forgiven him. I have forgiven him. I don't hate him, but I've watched him very, very seldom since he fell, especially the second time. And his ministry, if his ministry is ever anything like what it was before he fell, it's going to be a miracle of God. Of course, God can do that. But I doubt very seriously if his ministry is ever going to be like it was. His church can seat 5,000 or 6,000 people, but he only has 500 or maybe 1,000 people in his church now. I mean, it ain't nothing. You can look it up on the internet and know what I'm talking about. He's got YouTube videos. His church is not jam-packed with thousands of people. It may never, I don't expect it to ever be jam-packed with thousands of people again. That doesn't mean he didn't repent the second time, or maybe even the first time, but he may have repented, even especially the second time. I don't know. I hope so. But that doesn't mean that he's ever going to have a big ministry where thousands of people are jam-packing his church. And it doesn't mean that I haven't forgiven him if I hardly ever, if ever, watch any of his sermons again or anything. And you may not feel comfortable watching him either, even if you have a chance. And if you watch every sermon, if you look for his sermons all over YouTube, and if he's on a station regularly in your area and you send him money, that's between you and God. But I'm just saying, forgiveness doesn't always mean that things are going to be exactly like they were before. They may never be the same again. You don't have to be buddy buddies with somebody just because you forgive them. I think that needs to be explained. That doesn't mean you haven't forgiven them from your hearts, but I just think that needs to be explained.